Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional Nine Dango player. In this video, I'll be introducing Honinbō Dosaku's younger brother, or his nephew, because the sources don't agree. But in this video, I'm going with younger brother. The board position we're looking at, White has just played at L17, so this looks sort of like what we would now call a Chinese opening. They didn't call it Chinese 350 years ago, and since Honinbō Dosaku played this position in the top right a number of times, some people call it the Dōsaku opening. So he played it in various board positions, sometimes in two-stone games. So it's not as if the whole opening here is a combination of Dōsaku's plan, but he played this position in the top right in a number of games. To introduce Dosa, he was originally called Yamasaki. When he entered the Honinbō school, he became Yamasaki Dosa. And then in 1673, so a few years before they played this game, he became the leader of the Inoue house. So the Honinbō school had a number of students. Of course, Honinbō Dosaku was their star pupil, I suppose. But his brother was also a very strong player, and they had a number of students. The Yasui school also had a number of students. There was the Yasui brothers, who were the sons of the first Yasui Santetsu. And so that would be Yasui Chitetsu and Yasui Santetsu II, who were both very strong players. They were both about 7 dan. And there was also Yasui Sanchi, who became the Meijin. He was the Meijin before Honinbō Dosaku. He was the one who played a 20-game match against Honinbō Dōetsu, Dosaku's teacher. And they had some other strong players. So these two houses were looking like real schools. They were go schools. But then the Inoue school and the Hayashi school, those were more like just the one person who was being sponsored by the government. So that's how it started out, and these four families sort of developed into go schools as the era went on. So the Inoue school hadn't quite gotten to that point yet, and it started becoming a school when Dosa became their leader, actually. That's when they started taking students, I believe. So Dosa changed his name to Inoue Inseki, adopting the name of the first Inseki, the first Inoue's leader. And after that, that started a tradition. So all of the Inoue school leaders called themselves Inoue Inseki. So that's sort of confusing for us because while they had only one Inoue Inseki at any given time, so people knew who they were talking about, historically it's sort of difficult to tell which Inseki we're talking about when they all have the same name. So what we did to differentiate is we added on a kind of a middle name. So people back in the time, they changed their names a lot, so they had a lot of extra names that they'd thrown away, which we could add on, and to know who we're talking about. So that's why we add on the name Dosa, which was his name when he was in the Honinbō school, and he didn't use that during his life, but now we call him Inoue Dōsa Inseki, just to make sure we know we're talking about the right Inseki. And that went on. Some of the Inoue leaders would retire and they would become a Buddhist monk, and so they would take on a Buddhist name, so sometimes we add that on. Some of the most famous Inoue school leaders did that, actually. And so we can always find a third name to add on as a middle name. He was a very successful player. Dosa Inseki was a 7 dan, so he was one of the few players who could play with black against Honinbō Dosaku. To talk just a little bit more about Dosaku, he was the Honinbō, and he became Meijin in 1677. So at the time of this game, he's already Meijin. So that translates to 9 dan in the dan system, and he was 2 ranks above his brother here. One of the few players, as I said before, who could take black against Honinbō Dosaku. Okay, let's start with the game. Dosaku really liked to play the mokuhazushi, the 5-3 point. In modern Go, with AIs giving us scores, the mokuhazushi isn't one of their favorite moves. So while you can play any kind of shimari from a 3-4 point, you have choices of the big shimaris that AIs like so much, or the one space shimari. So you have 4 choices here, which are commonly played, and they all get fairly good results with AI checking. But the Mokazushi white is limited to... This is the one shimari that is really a good move, regardless of the board position. So sometimes you can play some unusual corner enclosures, but they have some important weaknesses. So like this would be open underneath, and that's a weakness which can sometimes be a big problem. So the only stable shimari that will regularly get fairly good results is this one. And so white's sort of limited to that. There's also the fact that if black dives into the corner, black gets to take away the territory, which in modern Go, people don't like that to happen. So that's why the Mokazushi is not played so much nowadays, but Dosaku really liked it. Okay, so white's sort of behind in corners. Black got to play 3 komokus, so in modern Go theory, this should be okay for black. And white plays the Dosaku style. So nowadays we call this a Chinese opening regardless, but of course Chinese openings are usually a combination of a star point, a 3-4 point, and this move on the side. So that would be what we would usually call a Chinese opening. Sometimes we call this a mini Chinese opening when there's a white stone in the lower right corner. And so the board context is a bit different from the number of josekis, or openings, that is, that we call Chinese. But the local idea is very similar. If black plays a kakari here, white's plan is probably to play this, which in the 20th century, when we played a Chinese opening, this was the idea that we had. So in modern Go, people play different moves with black, so black would be playing this attachment sometimes. But they didn't have that idea back then. This only happened after we had AI research. Okay, so I digress. So black played an extension here. Since these were games with no komi, there was the tendency for black to try to play a kind of a Pacific style. So black's trying to keep things calm. The lower right corner was the one stone that could be pincered from this side, for instance, which would give white an area in the top right and some fighting to do in the lower right. It would make the game more complicated. So this is an example of black simplifying the game to a certain degree. In a modern game, black might be playing something more like this, with a more direct threat to invade at m3 here. So the invasion here is more strong if black has played the kosumi or a knight's move like this. So if black plays something like this, it's a stronger threat towards the bottom side, but it leaves this extension for white on the right side. So there's a balance there. So white plays this. This is typical of Dosaku. In modern Go, we would play we would press. So if white had pressed here, like this. This is probably more like the modern, even with the Chinese opening move here. It would be more common to play this way. And maybe invade. Especially with no komi, white does want to make things exciting, so white might invade the left side here. And white's group in the top left is fairly strong, so in actual practice it does get into a bit of a fight. Okay, so white plays here. This is slightly slow. I would have played here, and so in this case the idea would be to try to surround black here, and white could continue maybe in the center now. So this would work well with white's big position in the top right, and it would be threatening an invasion on the left side at some point. If black plays something like this, white is threatening to surround black in the corner, so this would make an outside kind of a wall. And so black is avoiding that. A very natural move would be to play here. That was also an option, and white would probably slide into the corner. Instead, he plays one attachment and then takes the corner. So the idea is that he's stopping white from playing this move. It's more difficult for white to surround black. White does have the option of capturing the one stone. So this would be a very nice capture, and arguably white should have played it now. It would have given white a very good position on the top side, but then black would be attacking on the left side. So in the game, white attaches here. So white played once here to get out into the center, and then invaded the left side. So this is very much a no-komi game strategy, where usually white would be trying to settle the position a bit more on top. So adding a stone here would be one way to create a very strong position on the top side and indirectly protect white's group on the left. So this would make things calm down a bit, and giving black the left side, hoping for some potential towards the top right. Would be a normal way of playing. But I'd say this move is, he's trying to create a fight, so that because of the no-komi disadvantage, white does want to make things exciting here. So black played here. He's taking away white's base. White could have made a kind of a base here, but this would have allowed black to surround from the center. So that's why white didn't do that. But he is looking at, so for instance, to play here next, which would give white a base on the left side, and would take away black's base also. So black played here, white played here, and this is very much Dōsaku's style. So if black answers here, white does get some extra forcing moves, and could extend here, or could even jump. And white would have given black a bit of a cramped shape there, and white would have some extra eye space. So that's the idea, and black counters with this, and white's making use of this little tussle here to get some extra momentum outside, because now in order to kill white, black needs the extra move on the side. So white gained some speed, so black needed to play at b10, b9 that is, to take away white's eye space and to settle the black group. So at this point, the black group on the side is safe. Black's group in the corner is safe enough. White's group on the left side there, both of them are not strong, especially the group in the top left. But white has gained sente, so he used that to link up to the bottom side. So white plays here and plays here. So he's making use of black's shortage of liberties here to have this forcing move. So black played here. The suggested move with katago was to play here, and white would have to extend in this case. So there's pros and cons. So in this case, black gets sente. But there is a weakness here where white can squeeze from this side. So locally, black's okay with this move, but white does get one more forcing move here. So there's the potential forcing move there. Also, if white plays on this side, there's some trouble that could happen in the corner. So in this case, white actually can connect up on this side. And this would be very dangerous for black. It looks like it's going to die. So there's some disadvantages to the hanging connection here, but it was probably better because it would not allow white's double hane. So in the game, white got to play a double hane. If black goes after this stone, black's going to lose the corner. So there's a number of ways white can do this. The easiest might be just to squeeze from underneath. And black is running out of liberties. So black cut on the other side and cut here. So the corner group is not going to die because black can either play something like this. So a move in the corner makes eyes, and of course black has the cut here. So once white defends the cut at b5 or something like that, black can play a move in the corner, maybe c2 or b2. So here black is taking profit. If white had tried to save the stone, white could play here. The thing is, white's group on the left is not going to make two eyes, and with a lot of forcing moves, so for instance, anywhere around here, is a forcing move threatening to cut at J16. It means black has a lot of forcing moves, and it's going to be very difficult for white to save that group on the left side, which has a lot of space attached to it, so it's big. So this is how black meant to use the cut, and white just sacrificed the one stone. So white's trying to, in fact, white managed to connect up. So again, in a modern game, if black was giving komi, black would be fighting, maybe something like this. So black would be fighting, making use of the damezumari with this stone, just ignoring the 3 stones on the top. So something like this. So pushing out into the center, continuing the attack against white's group on the left would be a very active way of playing. In the game, black just took the profit. So black has something like 20 points in the top corner, top left corner. And black generally has more territory. White got to link up here. So this ended that local fight. And according to black's game plan. So after taking the profit in the top left, now black gets to jump in here. So black's idea was that white doesn't have any big areas. So since black got sente to dive into the top right, it's going according to plan. So this is a joseki that we saw a lot in the 20th century when a lot of people were playing, late 20th century, a lot of people were playing Chinese openings. So it could be the normal low Chinese opening, which would be these 2 stones and a star point in the top left corner. Or a miniature Chinese opening would be these 2 stones and probably a star point in the lower right corner, so something like that. So there's a lot of openings that are related to that, where this was the standard way for white to play. And black would usually play here and white would play here, attacking black like this. So in this case, there's a lot of white stones on the left, and this would be a bit cramped for black. So black didn't do it that way. In this case, it makes sense for black to move out towards the center first, and then black took this stone. So white extended here. So white really needs to defend against black moving out with this stone, but he didn't do so maybe because he felt he was behind. Black has maintained the lead. So if white plays here, maybe black will be extending again on the left side, on the right side, that is. And white needs to have a very convincing attack against black's group on the top, which is not locally alive yet, but it's probably a bit difficult to kill it anyway. So maybe he was afraid of falling behind in territory. He took some territory. And again, it would have been a safer move to defend the top left. So this would be a relatively peaceful game. And Honinbō Dosaku, he didn't really like the peaceful games. He liked to mix things up a little bit, and he managed to find opportunities. He was an extremely strong fighting player, and he had extremely deep and precise calculation. Even in modern, looking at it from modern day standards, his calculation was so precise that quite often even AIs have trouble seeming to have trouble to understand what he's thinking about. But in this case, it does look a bit dangerous. It could be since it's the brothers playing, and it's not a castle game. It's not a formal game in that way. So maybe they were enjoying the game a bit more than usual, because this is pretty dangerous for white. So white played here. So this is a tesuji. So if black answers locally, white has to play here. And so this is the idea where black is in danger of getting into damezumari. So if black plays here, this is going to set up a ladder. So obviously black doesn't want to do that. If black captures the one stone, white can use these forcing moves to capture this black stone. So that would capture these. So white's sort of setting a trap there where black cannot afford to play too actively from the right side. So if black connects here, that's going to save the day for the time being. White will cover here. Either black's going to jump, or it's maybe more easy to understand what's going on if we say black extends and white plays the hanging connection. White got great shape on the right, and if white connects here, black's group in the top right is going to be in trouble because there's some issues with connections and black does not have room to make eyes. So that's how this is going to work for white. So it was correct for black to just ignore that and play away. So white would have liked to be able to play the hane on top here. But this would have been a different variation, which is a bit more dangerous for white. Looks like white's stones on the top side can't escape. So that extra stone at 2 is actually, it allows black to cut here or to cut here. And since white can't capture in a ladder, white's going to lose those 4 stones. So that's why white didn't have time to play the hane here. And so it was a good move for black to extend, saving the important stones. The cutting stones are the important ones, sacrificing the stone on the right. And in the process, black got to connect up in the center. So all of this is working well for black. Black's playing very well. And white is still not 100% alive, so white had to add a stone here. Threading the cut at M14. So the cut at M14 is an issue. So black does have to be aware of the potential cut here. But for the time being, black is attacking on the left side. So black played the knight's move here. And white's group on the left is not alive. It doesn't have eyes, so white has to move out. And black is chasing white. So this is going according to plan for black. And black's making double threats. So white's group here in the lower left, it's not alive yet. And white's group in the center is, if black can surround it, it's not alive either. White defended the center. So let's take a look at the cut here. So locally, it's not a big deal because black can play here. So sometimes black can capture some stones from behind. So if black really wants to avoid that also, in some cases, if black has time, he can play here, but that's not going to save everything anyway, because sometimes white can do this anyway. And it looks like black's going to die. So we'll ignore that possibility. Although white can capture from behind here, white can't save the one cutting stone. So if white plays here and here, black can capture this cutting stone. It's captured in a kind of a net. So black has handled that for the time being. And white is looking more to attack on a large scale. So there's some potential for white to attack this group on a large scale, but it doesn't look like everything is going to die so easily. So black continues here. So white's group on the left is in trouble. And we're going to see some pretty amazing fighting here. White is trying to live. Black actually, in the game, black went after it immediately. I think black should have played here. So this would create a living shape in the corner. And the left side would still be a ko. So white has to play, it's either A7 or A5. So there's still going to be a ko. And so it's a ko like this. And the ko will continue. The difference between this and the game is that in the game, black got into a ko which directly killed the black group. But in this position, even if white wins the ko, the black group is not yet dead. So it's a bit more difficult for white to kill the group. Looks like black's going to get something like a ko in this variation. So it doesn't die outright, which is a difference from what we're going to see in the actual game. Okay, so black cut white off, white played here. Black went off after the group immediately. So locally, this is just dead. But things are going to happen with black's group in the corner. So white played here. And yeah, this was an unusual point for white to attack the black group. So the idea is that if black plays here, white can play an Atari and then cut. So that was the plan. White actually has 4 liberties. So it's going to be a difficult semi for black to win. If black plays here, black has 5 liberties. But white can always attach a ko to this group. And so it's going to be some kind of a ko. So like if this happens, it's a ko, a direct ko. So black connected, and now white played here. So This wasn't necessarily the only way to make a ko out of it, so white could have played here and here. And this would also be a ko-making variation. White plays here. If black pushes through, again, it's going to be some kind of a ko in the corner. So black can play here, and black has 5 liberties, but white can play here and fight the ko. So if black ends up connecting at a9, like I showed here, black 7, white has 4 liberties, but there's a ko attached, which makes it a direct ko. So black connected on the outside, white played here. And this is a tessuji, which makes me, I have f1 and b1. So if black plays here, white gets to connect underneath. So this was the game variation, and white extended here. So black has 3 liberties, white has 4 liberties, but there's a ko attached to black in this case. So it's this ko. So the difference of this ko and a ko I showed earlier was that now black is going to lose the whole group if black loses the ko. Well, black does have ko threats against white in the center. So they're playing this ko. White has local ko threats. So white's using these local ko threats to continue the ko. And black's ko threat in the center, playing here, ending up in double Atari, looks bad. But actually, it's okay because black's going to use this to reinforce the group in the center. And black's group on the left here is rock solid. So this is already endgame-like solid. It's completely alive. So black can afford to allow white to capture this stone. So that's the idea here. Black is reinforcing the group in the center. And white finally runs out of ko threats and uses this one. So this is where black finished the ko. So black has captured white's group on the left side, and white gets to capture black's group on the right, like this. So the end result, this was actually pretty even. So black got a whole bunch of territory on the left, and white captured that black group in the top right. Black's group in the center is safe enough because black has a forcing move with the Atari here. So when white played at n10 here, this is setting up a ladder. So for the time being, white has captured these black stones in a ladder. So that's how that worked. And black played here. So this was strange. So it's really strange that black played here, and it was a bit too passive, maybe a bit too defensive. So this is where, if black had played here, I'm fairly confident in saying that this black had a solid lead. So something like this. Just finishing off the lower right corner, black was ahead by a few points. So this would have been a winning variation. In the game black plays here, maybe he was worried about the group in the center. I can't see what issues it might have had. So that was a slack move, and white got to play this. This made the game very close. So at this point, the game looks very, very close. Jumping out here is a way for black to reduce white's lower side while attacking white on that group coming out from the left side. It's still weak, so white added a stone to that. So if white gets to play at b16, that group is going to have some eyes. It's going to be able to live. And black played here. That's a big move. And this is a ladder breaking move. So white has to be careful of the ladder when black plays this connection. And white added a stone to the center. The drawback is that after this, now white has this move. So it's sort of, it's doubtful whether this was very good, because it does cost a move on the left for black to play next. Okay, so the game record only goes this far. So it's actually undecided. It looks like black has potential to win. But the game record says that white won by 14 points. So that's a huge difference. And there are points like in the center, so if white plays here, this would take those 2 black stones in the center, and there's some potential that maybe white got some territory in the center and won the game. I did try to continue the endgame. So in the game it was like this. So I made a variation here where white plays the Atari first, and black should probably continue with this. So this is a kind of a forcing move, and this is where the game could get into a bit of a fight here. But if we say something like this happens, black can reduce the bottom side, and a lot depends on this area. So this is the one area where there's a lot of endgame left, and if black manages to skillfully reduce white's area, so maybe white plays something like this, and reduces it down to the 3rd or 2nd line, and also gets to play this move in the center, then the game would be close, maybe a small win for black even. And so I'd say the game was undecided, and just going through the whole game, I didn't see any points where black was making a decisive mistake. So black played well throughout, and he held the game against Honinbō Dosaku. So I'd say it was one of Dosa's best games. He was a very strong player, and he was one of the few players who played black against Honinbō Dosaku. So I'll finish my commentary here. This is the ending position of the official game record, and we don't have any more moves. So sorry about that, but that's as far as it goes. So thank you for watching, and I'll finish my video about Dosaku's brother.